let's get started. The next session, AI in cybersecurity, friend, foe, or both. My name is Markus Melin, and I come from NROC Security. So what's NROC Security? A few words about that. We are a company that helps corporations unleash the AI usage. So be it that you have been letting all of the users use AI and they start Gen AI tools and you start to be worried, or all your business users are asking you, can we use please, 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 and you blocked everything. We have help for you. So we provide visibility, guardrails to cover both prompts and responses. We authenticate all the use with things like Entra ID, Okta, Google. We make sure that the accountability is with the user, and we are network based, so it is extremely fast and easy to get us implemented. More, you can come downstairs to our booth and see how it works. Now, my task was to sort of give a little bit context to the Gen AI. So there's multiple frameworks how things can be split in Gen AI, and I selected one where there's, from cybersecurity perspective, first of all, the CISO and the security team has been always the department of no. You go and say, can I do this? No. Can I install this? No. Now, that team, the security team, has a possibility to actually be the department of how. So they can actually embrace the change because, let's get it, Gen AI is transformative. And being transformative by nature, it provides a lot of risks, but big reward if used properly. So with the department of how, they can say, yes, you can, but this is how you should be approaching the problem. So what is the categorization? You have your securing company from AI. So there's a lot of AI-powered threats, such as deep fakes, phishing emails, and whatnots. So the criminals, they are working as businesses. They have quarterly targets. They are buying and selling components. They are building software to cater for this. So it is that they want to be the super prompters before anybody else gets to be the super prompter. Then the other aspect is securing the AI. So employee usage, your business employees that are using Gen AI apps, either the ones you know of or the ones you don't know of. Based on NROC telemetry, we see that, let's say a company has decided that ChatGPT is the only one you're allowed to use. 70% of the usage is something else than the selected app. So employees use whatever they can get their hands on that does the best possible job because they want to be the best possible employees. That's like almost given. Also, if you are developing your own models, you want to make sure that your built models are airtight. So they are not leaking information, they are not leaking customer data, they are not doing anything like that. And then the third thing is using AI in security. This is why we are going to get presentations during this session. But as an example, Security Operations Center, there has been talks that it can be automated or partially automated to harvest a vast amount of logs and indicators of compromise. Then back to the topic. So friend, foe, or both. First of all, as a friend, you get things like threat detection, automated response, predictive things, and you can optimize your resources to cater for your given situation, the amount of business processes you want to operate. Foe being what was said about protecting your company from AI, you get really sophisticated phishing emails that even a natural speaker in a less spoken languages, like I come from Finland, which is 5.5 million people, still I get really credible emails that are like complete botox. The third thing being both, it is always an arms race. So the dynamics is there. There is a human element because the human is still the one who goes and presses a button, wire transfers money, puts in a prompt where they shouldn't have put in the prompt, like you probably read from the news that Pentagon guys were already active with DeepSeek before the security team figured out that there's an application called DeepSeek and we probably should block it. Also, it is important to note that terms of use on these Gen AI applications for them, since they are transformative by nature, they actually have a difference. So all of the Gen AI applications try to get as much of prompt data as possible for training their model further. So it is a game of data with the big models. And if you are not careful, your data will be used. So the free versions of ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, Gemini, they all use your data for training. If you get an enterprise version, they say they don't do that. So that's in terms of use. And then there's DeepSeek, which also promises that they hand over the data and the prompts to Chinese government. So there are different, and all of this is actually stated in the terms of use that nobody ever reads. So maybe worth taking a look on the applications that you are planning to sort of select for yourselves. How to prepare? That's a question that we've been getting a lot from our customers. So what should I do? And there's like three things that are important. First of all, having a strategy in place. What is a strategy and a strategic decision? That is a decision where you open a door, walk through and close the door and you can't go back. So as an example, a strategic decision was with Klarna when they announced that most of the support is resigned and they use AI for support. So that decision, if they would need more people, they are nowhere because they are probably working for some other company support already. So that's a strategic decision. So you need to figure out what is the strategy, what are the apps, what are the organizational policies that you should be following. Then the second part, human oversight and ethical frameworks. So thinking about the approach on simple things like GDPR in Europe, but also having dialogue with the employees. So where do you use that? What's your workstation approved policy when using that? Does it say that you are allowed to use the workstation only for work purposes, or does it say that you can use it for anything like your hobbies, the kids' gymnastic club or whatever, which is a little bit a bigger problem than from the security perspective, because then you can't go and start collecting all the traffic. So it goes and touches on all of the areas in your company environment. And the third thing, international cooperation and standards. So EU will have its AI Act, which comes in force 2nd of August 2026. For some special organizations, only August 2027. But that's something which we see at least being a little bit similar to GDPR. So everybody's waiting, okay, somebody must do an implementation, and they don't immediately start finding us. And then when the first fine hits somebody, based on the size of the fine, then everybody starts being active. So if you remember 2017, 18, all of the consultants were doing GDPR studies, and there was no consultants. If you were late, you were late. So with these words, wanting to sort of set the scene for our presenters and give you a thought of AI and what to think about it. So Michael from Lookout, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you everybody. Okay, so Michael Simpson from Lookout. Very, very quickly, who are Lookout? We're downstairs, so please feel free to come down and speak to us, get some more information. We are the leader in mobile EDR space, mobile endpoint detection response. Think about your anti-phishing, anti-ransom, anti-malware kind of capabilities you have on your laptops, desktops, and servers. We've been doing that since 2007. We're also leaders in the mobile-specific threat intelligence and threat research capability as well, providing that intelligence to the industry, to governments, to intelligence agencies, and assisting with mobile research and discoveries. I'm just going to very quickly go through what AI means to us, because it's a fantastic wishy-washy marketing term that people love to throw around. It's something we don't talk about that much, but we're very, very dependent on it. Back in 2007, when we released our very first agent, it was fundamental to how we work. And I'll go through that in a little bit more detail. But machine learning, essentially looking at massive data sets and being able to understand those massive data sets, both from a supervised and an unsupervised training model. Generative AI, which we're all looking at now with sort of your chat GPTs, your Geminis, your Claudes, the ability to have multimodal content, generate video, generate pictures, generate content based on what that tool has been trained on. And then finally, vision, being able to look at images, understand images as humans would, and being able to extrapolate and understand information inside that image. And we'll go through a couple of examples, how we see that both on the good side and the bad side. Now, I said for Lookout that AI is fundamental. We realized very, very early on that we couldn't deploy endpoint detection and response in exactly the same way your traditional vendors were doing it. We didn't have the luxuries of being plugged into the wall for unlimited power. We didn't have the luxuries of unlimited performance. You think back to the early iPhones and that kind of thing, we certainly didn't want to be taking memory, CPU, that kind of stuff. So we really had to focus on cloud-based detection, cloud-based detections as well. And that meant that we had to take massive amounts of data, process it at the back end, look for anomalies, look for risks, look for threats, look for attacks. And at the minute, we've got over 230 million device fingerprints in our database, which we're updating daily, and over 350 million applications. And we increase that by thousands each day, running them through our various AI engines. The first being the application analysis engine, what we know as Andromeda. That is processing all the applications, dynamic and static analysis, looking at the billions of data points, and then looking for sort of genome sequencing, looking for binary similarities. We train it to see this is what malware looks like. Show me anything else that also looks like malware. And just to get sort of a visual representation, this is one of the malware strains that we detected on Android in the Google Play Store. Just to zoom in a little bit further, it looks very, very pretty. It doesn't mean very much. What that's essentially showing us is we found a malware sample with a risky signer. We then saw that that signer was used with another 10 different malware strains. Those malware strains, and as you can see, we can then extrapolate that. And when we look at the core of the concentration, that's exactly where we're discovering a malware sample. Even if they've changed the code, even if it's a new developer, even if it's embedded in a completely different application, that binary similarity. The same goes for looking at devices as well. For every device we see, we take a fingerprint and we update that fingerprint. So we have billions of data points that a human cannot process. It has to be processed by machine learning. So if I've got 10 million different iPhone 12s, all on a EU baseband, for example, they should all look like this particular fingerprint of 1,000 different data points. If it's something different, why is it different? Is a device compromised? Is there an anomaly on there? Has somebody made changes to the kernel, for example? So being able to detect device compromise and lateral movement through that AI analysis. And then finally doing the same for the billions of URLs we're processing every day. We're all scanning QR codes. We're all clicking on links in Facebook and social media, even your work apps that you've got on your device as well. So being able to look at those millions and billions of domains and analyze and say, well, this domain looks like my product name. It looks like my company name, but the O is a 0. And actually, it's only been alive for 12 hours. And the speed of phishing attacks now, these are up for 12 hours and they're back down again. Domains are up and down so quick. So you have to have that AI intervention to be able to assist. I'm just going to go through a couple of examples where we're seeing AI being used as an attack. But for us, we really don't see AI as a new threat, with the exception to deepfakes. I only threw that little logo up to the top right-hand side to remind me about deepfakes and the recent Italian defense minister attack where millions of pounds were handed over because somebody just sent out a deepfake audio note of the Italian defense minister. So it does work. Deepfake, definitely a new threat. But the rest of AI is just a force multiplier. There are no new tactics, really. They're using the same old tactics, but they're using AI to be able to enhance those tactics, move faster, and enable people that perhaps didn't have that capability before to now have that capability. And we're going to go into some of those examples. So if we look at the modern attack kill chain, we see the first 3 stages being highly effective on mobile. I can carry out a lot of reconnaissance just by targeting your mobile device. You scan a QR code, I can learn so much about you and use that as part of the reconnaissance. And AI tools are using that to do automated vulnerability scanning. They're doing automated open source intelligence. I want to find out about you. I'm going to find out about you on your social networks, your work networks, your LinkedIn. Where else have you got a presence on the internet? So that's all automated by AI now. And there are many tools out there enabling that. We're trying to combat that with AI as well. We're doing automated dark web monitoring. Have we seen your email address or your password out there in the domain? If so, lock down your mobile device because your device credentials are at risk. We're using that device fingerprinting mechanism to be able to automate whether we know your device has a new update. If it has an update available, even before the vendor's told you, we can tell you. We can lock down your device until you've patched that device, and that renders the AI automatic vulnerability scanning useless. Social engineering, that's definitely taking place in your mobile device. You ever had that link, that text message to say your parcel's ready? They don't want you to really hand over your credentials or your credit card information. They just want you to click on it to see if it's real so they can work out who you are, where you are, what language you speak, what device model are you on, what OS are you on. And AI tools and attackers are using that capability to use natural language in processing. I don't need to be an English speaker now. I don't need to be an Irish speaker. I know you're in Dublin because you clicked on the link. It told me you're in Dublin. So I go to ChatGPT and I say, make an effective email or make an effective text message for somebody in Dublin that says your delivery is now available. And we're combating that by looking at the text messages as they're coming in. Looking at the text message, what's the intent of that message? Is there a threat of violence in there? We're seeing quite a lot of attacks at the minute where they've done their research, they've done their recon, they're now in the social engineering phase. They know from LinkedIn what company you work at, you're an IT administrator. They find you on Facebook, they send you a message. We know where you are, we know where you live. We're going to break your legs unless you give us access. So being able to use natural language processing to look at those messages, for example, lock down your device, alert the SOC, we see a threat of violence here, and then your SOC can do something about that. It's an extreme case, but we do see it happening. The same goes for malware. We're seeing malware automatically generated. I'm sure you've seen examples where they've been generating malware on ChatGPT or whatever other Gen AI platform it is. The same as creating captive login portals, for example. I did that on the way down here on a train. I saw the train captive portal. I can't code for hell. So I just told ChatGPT, create me a captive portal that looks like this where I can capture the username and password. And we've already gone through sort of what we're doing around app genome sequencing and device fingerprinting using that massive data set. Without that huge amount of data, we really wouldn't be that effective. But just my final note, I want to say before you go away and you start building your new AI division inside your security team, there are still fundamental problems. As I said earlier on, AI isn't a new tactic. It's a new tool, but it certainly isn't new tactics. They're using old tactics. They're just moving quicker, faster, and more often. And a lot of the major attacks that we're seeing recently, and you notice I've not put up some of the most recent attacks that are taking place right now because I feel it's in bad taste to talk about out the minute. They're exactly the same TTPs as what we're seeing on the screen now. There are teams of humans. It's not AI bots at the back end automating all of this. It's teams of humans still moving it through. And I just want to give you one example of a discovery we made last year called Crypto Chameleon. The link's at the bottom. You can see it at our website. We managed to infiltrate a ransomware team in the US-speaking ransomware team. Huge team of operators all working together in a customer service type scenario. So what would happen is the victim would receive a link, which is fully customizable. They were changing the text inside the link. Their platform allowed them to tweak it following the social engineering and the recon that they'd just done. Click on the link. They'd introduce this new step, validate that you're a human. Number one, that makes the human think that, oh, this is real. I need to click on a link. And number two, it stops automated testing tools for actually discovering this phishing attack. I've got 30 seconds left. So the next piece, it wouldn't automatically move you to the next step because it changes. Am I logging in with MFA? Am I logging in with an SMS code? Am I logging in with an authenticator app? I need to make it realistic. So there were teams of humans manually processing the stolen credentials through. They would manually push the victim to the next step. Once we know what the victim's sign-in method is, push them again to the next step. So there's a team of humans behind, clicking the buttons, pushing them to the next step to make sure that it's as authentic as possible. which ultimately resulted in full credential harvesting, getting access to all of their ID, getting access to their platforms. And because they've got their session token or their MFA capabilities, they can walk around harmlessly in all the different applications they've got. Okay, so that was me. Managed to get in 10 minutes, 20 seconds. Not bad.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Any questions, Michael? No? All right. I have one.
Okay.
So you mentioned that you are doing processing huge amount of data.
Yep.
There's a concern about privacy. So what do you do with the privacy data?
Do you know, this is a difficult one for any vendor. Do I capture loads of sensitive information and use that to be able to detect a threat, or do I have that privacy angle? We all seem to have a very different trust relationship with this than we do our corporate desktop of our corporate laptop. You're going to get twitchy if I put an agent on here. So I think we have to respect privacy more. So the way we've designed our solution is we don't take anything private in the first place. Anything that we consider a breach of GDPR, we don't take that. We don't see your apps, we don't see your files, we don't see your photos. Anything that does go into our models is completely de-anonymized. All I need is a device ID. I don't need to know your name. I don't need to know the names of the apps in your device because I'm telling you, you need to fix them.
Awesome. Thank you.
Not a problem. Thanks.
So next we hear from Hornet Security. We have Thomas. Floor is yours.
I'm not Thomas. Thomas unfortunately couldn't make it today, so you've got me instead. Hi. So I'm Irving, Regional Manager for Northern Europe. So I'm going to probably give you more my view on AI rather than the marketing slides that have been shared with me for you guys today. So hold on. Hey Meta, can you set timer for 10 minutes? Thank you. Hold on. Great. So AI in the wrong hands. And as I've just demonstrated, it's everywhere and it's not really going away. I've embraced it. I take lots of videos and pictures, but don't worry, I'm not going to take any pictures of you guys today, as handsome as you all are. So, yeah, as I said, Thomas, one of our product evangelists, couldn't be here today, so you've just got myself. So this will probably be the least technical demonstration speech you've ever heard in your life, but I'm going to go through it. So, Hornet Security, what do? We secure Microsoft 365 environment. So in the early days, it was about spam and malware and filtering, all that sort of good stuff. That's evolved into backing up all of that environment, your emails, your Teams, your SharePoint. SharePoint I'll come on to later. Overlaying that with some sort of compliancy, what would I call them? I'd call them rules. You know, making sure the right people get access to the right information, etc. And more recently, our security awareness service. We've purposely not called it training because training suggests that it's just a one-off exercise that you do in January and then you've forgotten it by February. So we feel, as much as I do, that it's a continuous learning process. So to give you some sort of size and scale of Hornet Security, we have a clever set of people in our security lab who look at all of the data and try and make sure that we're protecting our customers as best we can. So obviously the data paints a picture of where you should probably be more proactive than you currently are. But I think the key stat on there, which really amazes me, is the last one. We stop about 2 million dangerous sharing behaviors per month, and that's quite consistent. And I guess the point here is with Microsoft, what do? A collaboration company. They're not a security company. So that's where companies like Hornet fit in. So we make sure that as much as you want to share data with your colleagues, external agencies, supply chain, it's just making sure that the right people gain access to the right type of information. And what we found, as you'll see probably later on in the presentation, is that when you stopped working with that supplier, have you disabled them correctly? Something that often gets forgotten about. But luckily, we've got some solutions that will help you with that. So, as I said, obligatory marketing slide. So, basic services on the left, enhanced email security, compliance and governance tools on the right. So there's a lot of products there, but they're all available in a bundle as a suite from a commercial point of view. So AI in the wrong hands. I think we've all probably kept up to date with the news. What was it? Marks and Spencer's, Harrods. I think we even saw this morning Facebook have got a little bit of an issue. So what's happening now is that you, as a bad guy, don't have to be an expert on technology to do your work. Another one of our evangelists, Andy, he did a great webinar on AI. And his point being, and he took customers through a demonstration, that as a non-coder, within 10 minutes, you can write a ransomware attack using ChatGPT as your brains. So we need to be on top of that. We need to have countermeasures to help you guys and your customers. Just going to let this build. Yeah, so Microsoft 365, fantastic collaboration tool, built-in AI using ChatGPT. Great. So now our customers and their end users have a great tool to help them with their productivity, their research, but it still needs to be governed in the same way as your email security. You wouldn't roll out an email platform to your customers without spy malware or any filtering, would you? So again, as I alluded to earlier, it's about the education piece. It's continuous. So that's what you need to be mindful of. I'll just let this one build. So the surface issue. So the example here, or the story here, is with Copilot. You can set it up for internal use and also external use. So one of the stories is that somebody was doing some research at a company on salaries, benchmarking. What's the average salary for a developer? What's the average salary for HR, et cetera, et cetera? But what they did, they put that within Copilot. And what it actually managed to find was a series of spreadsheets that detailed all of the internal employees' salaries. And they used that to give the answer to the individual to say, oh, the average C-level person earns X, Y, Z. So it's probably data that they didn't actually want to share internally, let alone externally, but they rolled out Copilot in all its excitement because Microsoft said, hey, this is a great tool and you can have that for an excellent price. So you need to think about the sensitive data and how you secure that. So you've got disgruntled employees, you've got compromised accounts, what was that? MFA not being configured correctly and stuff like that. And then you've got nosy people like me that are curious and do lots of research and then gives me a considered opinion that I form my next action on. So again, going back to that salary example, I could have been doing it maliciously or just out of curiosity. But in any case, Copilot gave me the answer. So yeah, one of the things that we find with Microsoft and tools like SharePoint, for example, as well as Copilot being rolled out, is that it's open, it's out of the box. They don't have security in mind. They have collaboration first and foremost. So does anyone know about Microsoft Teams and how if you do copy a link and try and share it with someone in a group chat, it makes that link open? There's no security built in as default. Yeah. When it first came out, I don't think it was a thing of consideration, but luckily we've educated a lot of our customers, haven't we, Graham, with that? He's busy writing notes. Anyway, right. So my point being that organizations do lack, or some organizations do lack maturity in being able to lock down those open links that users are just sharing because they're trying to be helpful and get the information across. So we have a case study because we have lots of customers, an IT company, 500 employees-ish, 2 million files on their SharePoint. 104,000 of those had specific access right rules on. Great, it's a good start, but those two numbers don't really correlate, do they? So if I look at the chart here, so the top line is, that's really small, the internal share. So that's just people sharing information internally. So you've got finance sharing to HR, HR to sales and vice versa. But the bottom lines you'll see is where the real problem is, or probably the bigger problem is, the external. As my example earlier about you've got a supply chain company that you work with, you may have had a sharing information with an external marketing agency and you want to give them some sort of facts and figures and maybe some financial information. But then you stop working with that agency at the end of that project. So again, if you've not closed that down, they've still got access to that information and probably more. So we've got a handy service called Permission Manager. Quite simply, as I said earlier, just make sure that people get access to the right information that should have access to. So once we install that, obviously, we were able to lock down a lot of the files and disabled some of the links that were currently out there. Because again, one of the things you ask a CIO, CTO, whoever, so how many shares have you got that are unrestricted? What type of files are you sharing outside of your business, let alone internally? You wouldn't know. It would probably take him and his team a month to find out once they've run loads of different Microsoft reports and try and piece it all together. So our tool looks at that and makes it really simple for you to manage on an ongoing basis. So before and after, so you can see the stats there speak for themselves. It's a tool that really makes sure that you're sharing the right information with the right people. So again, I'm not technical, but I'm told there's lots of security best practices out there that people should adhere to. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But with our solutions being as they are, a little bit of AI in there as well, we can help automate a lot of that process so you don't have to worry. So I guess the takeaway point really is that we have a lot of powerful tools out there, but you need to be mindful on not limiting people's productivity, but just making sure that your governance and best practice is in place. And we've got a tool to help you do that. So that was my non-technical explanation of AI in the world of Hornet. How am I doing for time, Meta?
Close enough.
Close enough. Great.
All right.
Didn't need AI in the end.
We take the questions at the end. So let me introduce it from Cool Point. The floor is yours.
Morning all. Set a timer quickly, otherwise I will jabber on. I've only got 10 minutes. It's going to fly by for me. It's going to feel like a lifetime for you. Start, there we go. AI in cybersecurity. Deep fakes. We've heard a bit about deep fakes already. How criminals are weaponizing artificial intelligence. First of all, a quick definition of intelligence comes from the Latin inter, between, and legere, to read between the lines, to actually understand data that is not necessarily explicit. Really key point when it comes to understanding artificial intelligence. AI over the years has transformed. It's developed rapidly and continues to develop in a very rapid manner. The first instances of AI back in the mid-50s, 1956, Dartmouth College in the US, where they started to really understand the concepts of how a machine could be intelligent, how a machine could start to do the things that people do without being explicitly programmed to do that. That point about being explicitly programmed is again key. However, there weren't any real good applications of artificial intelligence until the advent of machine learning in about the mid-1990s. And certainly from a proof point perspective, we started the company back in 2002 based on using machine learning to identify spam and sort of malicious emails. It's continued to develop. After machine learning, we got the notion of deep learning. This is where we started to use multiple thousands of layers of understanding built on the same concept of how our brains work, this sort of neural approach, these neural networks of approach to understand information. With this deep learning and the understanding of that intent came transformers. Transformers allowed you to take that intelligence that you'd understood, being able to understand lots of complex information and draw conclusions from that, and start to generate content from that. Understanding language, moving that towards developing the ability to generate content. And that is where ChatGPT and this sort of generative AI that we know and use widely today comes from. This year, the buzz term in AI is now agentic AI. Has anyone heard of agentic AI? Yeah, really popular term. This is something we're seeing both in terms of sort of security vendors, in terms of the usage of AI out there, but also from the criminal gangs starting to deploy agentic AI techniques. More on that in a moment. I'm not going to go through this long list. AI is not without its problems. We've all heard about hallucinations, the misinformation and deepfakes, about which I'll talk in a moment, copyright and intellectual threats, the environmental impact, the processing power required to power this generative AI, creates so much demand on our electrical systems. I think in Ireland, it was something like 10 to 12% of the power here is being used to power data centers. And a lot of that, of course, is being used to power our increasing demands on artificial intelligence. I'm also going to show you some basic use of AI. Has anybody got an iPhone? I'm sure Androids use the same. Have you used AI to sort of look for photos of friends? Yeah, and sort of picked them together. I have. This is my mate Roy. Yeah, I've worked with Roy. I've known Roy for years. Roy is one of my best buddies. Now, I go to a rock festival called Download with Roy every year. And last year, unfortunately, he's a keen cyclist. He was cycling down a hill and hit a goat at a great speed. Roy was badly injured and couldn't go to Download. Now, we can't go to Download without Roy, so we made a Roy. Now, AI thinks that is Roy. So AI is not always as sophisticated as you want it to be, because I was looking for pictures for Roy. AI thinks that's Roy. AI thinks Roy is everywhere. It's still that all of these people, that's Roy. Obviously, it's not Roy. So AI can be fooled or can generate incorrect information for you. That said, it is advancing. It's advancing rapidly. Has anyone ever heard of Deep Tom? Deep fake Deep Tom. So this guy who looks a little bit like Tom Cruise for most of his acting career was just like, oh, you look a bit like a young Tom Cruise. And he was so annoyed with it until the advent of artificial intelligence. Been generating widely successful social media pictures on YouTube, videos of him pretending to be Tom Cruise. He does the acting. They put Tom Cruise's face on him using AI. His production team have gone from taking weeks to being able to put these videos out in a matter of days, if not hours. So the speed with which AI is developing and helping people create videos is fantastic. Now, of course, that is extended to the criminal gangs. And there's this fantastic, horrible, but amazing story about a British multinational company called Arup. These are the guys who they're a design and engineering company. They designed the Sydney Opera House. They lost $25 million as a result of deep fakes. Okay? One person in their Hong Kong office was on a conference call, a Zoom call, whatever, with several other people from the finance team, including the CFO. And as a result of that call, they wired $25 million to a bank account. The only real person on that webinar was the person who was defrauded, the person who sent the money. All the other attendees on that call were deep fakes. Astonishing. Not just one person pretending to be, but everybody else on that call. Fantastic bit of criminal activity. Obviously, I can't condone it, but the use of AI, use of artificial intelligence to create that, staggering. How else are criminals using artificial intelligence? Of course, we've already heard how they're being used. Already heard how it's being used to perform reconnaissance. Getting information about organizations, very, very quick to do. Put into ChatGPT. Tell me more about this organization. Tell me more about this individual. You'll get a summary very, very quickly. Also, from a scripting and development perspective, it's easy. We've also heard another example about how ChatGPT can be used to generate code, various tools out there. Hey, ChatGPT, create me some malware that will do this. It's weaponizing artificial intelligence to make it much easier to develop ransomware, any sort of criminal activity. And of course, the social engineering. We see a lot of LLM-based social engineering starting to emerge. Again, if a criminal gang is writing a bit of ransomware or a phishing message, they can send out really interesting lures targeting specific types of people, using local language, colloquialisms, and so on to grab their attention and trigger an action. Remember, it's just a human response to an external stimulus based on something that's been built out of ChatGPT or some other artificial intelligence tools. I also mentioned earlier agentic AI. We will see criminals use this more and more. Agentic AI, this is where AI-powered tools can make decisions and adapt based on information as it arises. Looking at that information, making a decision, and taking action, all pretty much immediately to perpetrate that crime. So there's a definite case there where AI is bad. It is a foe. It's not all bad. Okay? There are some amazing use cases that we have. We've heard some examples of how AI is powering security from some of the other speakers this morning. From a proof point perspective, we also use it for good. We've been using AI since the inception of the company back in 2002. We develop as well, different techniques to block the bad stuff. We can identify newly created domains. We identify the patterns that people use to communicate with one another and understand when that's anomalous and take appropriate action. So the behavioral activities between people, we use large language modules to identify semantic changes. We can also, and what's interesting for me, for a lot of our customers, is to start to use generative AI, not just to block stuff, but to make it easier for people to interpret and understand what has happened. So as well as using sort of LLMs and various models to block things, we're using generative AI to build summaries that make it easier to take that information off to the board to help you understand what actions you need to take to speed up that process. And of course, we are looking at agentic AI to understand how we can simplify and speed up the process to take response based on what we're seeing. When it comes to using AI, though, you have to have a policy. Policy needs to be in place. You've got to know how AI is being used in your organization. You've got to secure and prevent people from uploading sensitive information into these generative tools to stop it from getting out there into the wider world. Having a policy, having tools to govern AI, really key. So you're securing that whole AI life cycle within your organization. Understand the limitations, understand what data is being used, share that, have that policy, and understand where there may be issues like hallucinations, where there's bias, how much it's costing you, and understand that it's not a silver bullet to everything. It's a tool to be used in conjunction with others. That is me. Thank you very much. If you've got any questions or want to speak to us about Proofpoint, we're downstairs.
Thank you. So, next we have level 2 and the lower door.
Okay. Okay, so today I will talk about a playbook, how design thinking and AI unlock business growth. So this is a talk where actually I don't have anything to sell. When we discussed this talk, why me? The sales said, because we don't want a pitch. So this is for you, how AI can empower you in the future. And we heard how AI can empower cybersecurity, and now we are going to talk about how AI can unlock business growth and your personal growth. So to start, we are facing the reality that it's not enough anymore, even for us personal or the businesses, to go beyond incremental gains, right? To unlock new internal efficiencies in the companies, to reduce costs, to change the processes, to change internal tools. It takes a lot of time. It was very expensive in the past. Then tapping into the new markets with new offerings. This was extremely expensive and slow process. At the same time, reaching previously unaddressed customer segments, those customers that you know that work with your customers, but you can't reach them already for years. This has also been kind of very hard to reach, right? Because incremental gains are something that was happening over time, and the entire thing was based around the strategic investment planning, market research. It was very slow. Today, we live in a hyper-productive world where there is a competitor for every 100 other competitors, and it's very easy to build. Actually, it's not even a thing, can we build it? The only question is, should we build it? And to kind of answer question why we need to go beyond incremental gains in the businesses, I offer you this chart. This is a global money supply from 2020 to 2025, 40% increase in money printing. What does this mean to your business? What does it mean for you personally? That means, for example, if you had a business with 100 million revenue in 2020, and in 2025, you have a business with 140 million revenue, you actually didn't grow. It's stagnation. And that's what you achieved by incremental gains, because the money lost value. So how can we counter this debasement of money? How can we go beyond incremental growth as a business or as individuals to counter this loss of value, right? We need to find a way to do exponential gains. Now, in the past, this was reserved for a very small amount of companies that had resources and funds and can hire talent to do so. And you all know who are these companies that always kind of have the newest thing, and they're always on the top of innovation, and they always are the ones that start some kind of new trend, right? And they were always managing to kind of exponentially grow, while the other companies kind of were kind of condemned to this incremental growth. So it is a real challenge, right? Incremental improvements are not enough. Breaking new grounds is hard. Traditional limitations, traditional approaches, doing market research, 12 months roadmaps, planning, this is not going to send growth of your company beyond the valuation of the currency, right? And then you need a new method for this, and something that I do with Level Blue. I lead a specific AI think tank where we think about these things and we kind of fuel innovation in our company. So it's not actually about being smarter or being intelligent to assume that you can kind of outgrow the incremental growth, because the real world is far more complex than you or me can intellectualize. It's not even 10,000 hours, it's more about 10,000 tries. To get new ideas, to get new innovations, to progress, you need to learn. You need to learn through making mistakes, right? You need to have ideas, you need to have prototypes, and you have to do it cheaply. So I'm offering you a solution. It's powering growth with a synergy of new mindset and AI. Why I'm talking about this today? This was not possible 2 years ago, right? We have to start from the user and acknowledge user needs. Fail fast and learn faster, and then now there is an AI. AI enables us to actually rapid innovate, and it's a skill enabler. So why user? Why we are starting from the user? Who is a better person to develop a new offering, to fix the internal tooling, to add a value to your product and feature than actual person who is the closest to the process, who is using the internal tool, who is using your product, right? Not going to standard traditional approach of market research, planning for 12 months, etc. So we need to embrace rapid experimentation. So AI is actually enabling everyone to be a creator. That means everybody in this room now today has tools at your disposal, even for free, that you can create. You can get these tools and you can build something for yourself, like you heard previous speakers saying, but also you can build the same in your companies. I'm talking about rapid prototyping and short design cycles that accelerate learning. Of course, that also means fail fast principle. When you are developing idea in the company, when you are developing the prototype, you need to be able to fail fast and do it fast and cheaply. I will give you an example without going into theory. Let's say you are a sales engineer, right? And your company maybe has a scoping tool on your website that was not updated for years. You as a sales engineer can request, for example, read-only access to the monitoring tool through API. You can set up internal tool, a scoping tool, to create a scoping tool for your clients with real data. I assure you, in some of our use cases, this takes less than 10 hours. A sales engineer in Level Blue was able to do this. And the person always knew what needs to be done about the scoping tool, but at the same time, the tools were not years ago available because the internal app had certain owner, there was an app owner, there was a process, there was a team who was developing, etc. So it is important that we are empowering everyone to build the future. And this is something that we did in Level Blue. So we had over 1 month period, 21 teams, all self-organized groups, 3 to 4 people. And the team cohesion is pretty close. So usually people who self-organize, they're all the same role. So you will probably have like 4 sales engineers or 4 SOC analysts or 4 network engineers working together in one team. So average less than 10 hours per person. It took to kind of create a useful internal tool or even a product feature. We actually had a team of SOC analysts that created a certain feature for our product that was actually on a roadmap for a very long time and requested by the customers, but we simply didn't get it through because of the resource and time constraints for other features. And this one SOC analyst managed to do it in less than 10 hours by using AI tools without any coding background. So we had like a 30% success rate, which is actually, I believe, pretty good to go from nothing to 30%, all self-organized people who are subject matter experts in the domain that they are doing. So that's the best person actually to work with this. Let's, for example, take a SOC analyst. A SOC analyst is a SME in the security analysis, and also he's a power user of the CM. So if you consider a T profile of a person, everyone in this room has expertise, is a subject matter expert in some areas. That's your vertical T stem. And what AI actually is doing, it's kind of expanding your horizontal T. So AI is making you more efficient and more valuable actually to the company, because what we actually want here, we want deep expertise. We want these SOC analysts who have deep expertise in the product to understand which feature would be the best to ideate and to build the feature prototype. This is what we need from them. We don't need to pair them with a cloud engineer. We don't need to pair them with somebody who is going to do thinking for them, because AI can expand their horizontal T and it can give them, for example, skills necessary to work with that. And it's all about going from silos to co-evolution. It's about symbiotic relationships between the companies, this interoperability that AI is going to bring. What will be the value creation of the tomorrow? Platform-centric is today, but tomorrow is going to be AI protocol-centric. So the key takeaway is start small, place many small bets with fast experiments, test directly internally with users, and provide support structure, provide no-code tools, isolated AI models, free to fail and easy to start from scratch environment, best practices, security training and technical support, and your employees and everybody in this room can be builders and creators of the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Josip. And now we have Bitdefender and Lee. Floor is yours.
Right. Well, good morning, everyone. Yeah, I'm Lee. I'm from Bitdefender, and I just basically wanted to talk to you guys about how AI is essentially used within the cyber realm. But first of all, it's probably best to start off with cyber risks. Now, in terms of how AI is used, we've heard a couple of times that can be used in an offensive manner. So, for example, creating enhanced malware. And also it can be used for, as we've heard also before, automated phishing can be used for social engineering attempts. And in using AI, they are able to scrape data from the web to learn about interactions with people, such as LinkedIn and stuff like that, Facebook, to generate more personable phishing attempts. Now, we've all heard of the cyber attacks that's going on. It's currently in the news, and it's something that's going to cause a massive impact. Now, obviously, we don't know the extent right now, but it is something that's currently ongoing. And also, there are cyber attacks in Ireland itself. So there are a lot of worries about cyber attacks going on within companies, whether they're multinational or even here, based in Ireland. And in terms of the particular attacks we're seeing, it can be quite costly. So it can range from €100,000 all the way up to 10 million. So it's not a small number by any means. So in terms of using AI within artificial intelligence, I thought it's probably better to kind of step back and understand what AI is. Now, generally speaking, AI is a computer system that can perform complex actions or tasks. And within AI itself, there are multiple sub-branches, similar to how when you learn science, you have physics, biology, and chemistry. The same is true for artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence being the main branch, then you have machine learning inside of it, and then deep learning inside of that. Now, machine learning is basically something that can be used to classify or identify patterns in something that has been observed. And deep learning itself allows processing of large amounts of data that's identified within the observed object. Now, just to kind of give an overall example, human brains are very, very powerful, very, very clever. I mean, most of the time. And from glancing at this picture, you can see clearly this is a dog. So we can see there's a nose, but from a computer's frame of view, they work in a numbers world. So the computer will give identifications to what it's seeing and give values against them. So, from this, from all the information it gathered, it's able to identify that this in the picture is actually a golden retriever. Now, with that information that we've just kind of very quickly gone over, we can also use the same methodology in order to understand different breeds of dogs because of the shape of the nose and so on. But we can also take that same methodology in order to understand things in the cyber world. So we can also understand that these particular traits are from a Trojan horse or ransomware or spyware. Now, the method I've just explained to you is something called feature extraction. So this is essentially this is one of the ways that we can identify attacks out there in the world. So how can I become cyber resilient? So I thought it'd be helpful to start off with a definition. So cyber resilience is the ability for an organization to anticipate, withstand, recover, and adapt while continuing to operate efficiently. So in terms of what we offer at Bitdefender, we offer a whole bunch of stuff. I'm not going to go through the entire slide, but we offer a whole bunch of stuff that leans into prevention, protection, as well as detection and response. We also have, behind this, have threat intelligence, which is global, and we have a presence across the globe. We also have, we are active in the field of AI in terms of developing AI algorithms. We also have multiple academic papers out there in the world. We also lecture on AI, talking about things such as neural networks. And we also have our own internal Bitdefender labs where we create our own AI and ML algorithms in order to help us understand new and emerging threats out there in the world. And with these, we essentially pit our models against each other in order to, for lack of a better description, fight for supremacy. So I won't go through the entire timeline one by one, but we have basically integrated AI and ML in a lot of our technology that we have in our stack. So we lean pretty heavily in AI in order to help our customers. Now, right at the end, there is a AI assistant where you can essentially use an LLM or large language model in order to query what's happened in the attack that you're essentially seeing. So you can ask it what data has been taken, which endpoints are affected, where is the initial breach coming from? And on this particular vein, so our AI assistant will basically give you all that information, allowing people that's looking after your security to essentially, they don't have to be the highest level of security analyst. Now, something literally released last week, we have another product also based on AI that understands end users as well as what they use on their endpoint for their job. And anything outside of that realm, our AI will basically automatically lock down. So again, as you can see, we're using AI in a lot of our solutions to help secure your work environment, as well as ensure that they don't, the tools that are required for working is essentially allowed to be used. Therefore, reducing the attack surface available to the threat actors. So in terms of, I briefly explained how this solution works. So it basically understands the behaviors as well as the tools that's being used per user, and then groups those users in a certain way that allows for hardening of the endpoint, where it will again allow activate or deactivate certain tools. So I just want to focus on the key capabilities of this particular solution. So the main thing around this is that there's a certain type of attack called living off the land. Now, what that essentially means is that the inbuilt tools on your desktop, servers, and so on, there's certain administrator tools that have the ability to change systems. That can, for example, there's a tool called PowerShell where you can run a script and lots of things can get deployed. Now, not everybody actually needs that tool on their endpoint. For example, a secretary would only need to use certain applications, but PowerShell would not be one of them. We'd basically harden the endpoint by not allowing that to be run. Our AI is autonomous, as well as we look at the point of view that we don't want to bombard your security team with a whole bunch of alerts. So we have an autopilot feature which will generate recommendations and apply it for you. So I wanted to finish with the fact that we do have a global presence. We are deeply into the field of AI in terms of research, as well as providing solutions for our customers. Thank you.
If I start, let's go with Level Blue. So Joseph, you had a quite busy ending there. Could you explain a little bit more about what would be the practical steps? You mentioned that you were able to engage the employees. So how do you make sure that they actually sort of are unleashed, if you will?
Yeah. So what we do, thank you. What we do, we create an environment for employees. It's a no-code environment where they can easily log in and start experimenting. Also, this environment has very specific attributes, it's easy to fail, and it's easy to basically start from scratch again. This is one of the most important things. Also, we arrange all the security required, right? Isolated data, isolated models. We also provide security awareness trainings. There are security considerations, of course, data residency, data transfer, and we do little tricks in the interface. For example, if employee can click a drop-down menu and select multiple models, we go into the code, we remove everything so they can only select ours. So we kind of make it possible for employee only to think about experimenting and creating without possibility of making an accidental error. And of course, we provide some kind of security awareness training, like, do not kind of push the data outside to the internet. And I think, many people who are working in the industry and employees, they're all professionals. And with some kind of precautions and some kind of compliance measures, I believe that, the risk of the incident is very, very small.
Thank you. So then a question to Ed. Could you explain a little bit about AI? It's like I mentioned in the beginning, it's an arms race. So how do you keep ahead?
We spend money. You have to have good researchers, you have to spend time, effort, you have to have a huge data set. If you don't have a good data set to feed your LLMs, they're not going to keep up. So understanding what changes are happening, understanding the advances in artificial intelligence, working not just on your own, but working with academia, working with other vendors, having open conversations is the only way to keep ahead of the criminals. They are right behind us.
Right on. So Lee, could you then expand a little bit on the attack surface? How do you reduce it? You were talking a little bit about that, so could you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, so in terms of attack surface, this can be quite wide ranging depending on the company. It can be things such as external facing assets, where it's a website. It can even be the internal assets such as desktops, servers, and so on. Now, depending in terms of your attack surface, you can do something called hardening, which reduces any vulnerabilities that you have within the computer itself, where there is something that's policy driven, or you can use a solution to actively decrease the availability of the attack surface. Now, the attack surface itself can range from again the desktops all the way up to the servers, but also it can be something as small as permissions, as we've heard earlier.
Thanks. So permissions take us to Hornet security. So a question there, could you elaborate a little bit with the hallucinations? So Microsoft Copilot and ChatGPT, is there a difference, or how do you approach the problematic in the first place?
That's probably a question for Tom, but he's not here. So the way I would respond to that is, AI like Copilot, it's a great productivity tool, fantastic, but it has to be managed with secure data governance, and user awareness. So if you want to know more on that, come and see us downstairs on our booth, or you can talk to this gentleman over there. They keep smiling at me because he's one of our customers, and he's probably nodding and agreeing with me in how helpful that we are. So yeah, don't take it from me. Probably have a chat with one of my customers over there. Thank you.
That's a good point. The customer is always right.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So lastly, on the mobile devices. So how do you see all of the corporate workstations are already managed, have been managed for a long time? And you mentioned in your presentation that the privacy and the sort of it's a little bit more sensitive area touching the mobile devices of employees. So any thoughts, should they be managed as well?
Actually, if you look at any of the regulations that are coming out at the minute, EU NIS 2, Cyber Essentials, DORA, all that kind of stuff, they essentially say that any device that can process corporate information should be covered. That means if you've got a personal device with Teams, OneDrive, whatever suite you're using, and you can access your corporate resources, that's a perfect pivot point for lateral movement. So you need to be able to cover both managed and unmanaged devices. You're going to have employees that say, I want to get Teams on my personal device. but I don't want it to be managed. I don't want it on Intune or Workspace ONE. I don't want you to have the ability to wipe my personal device. So we need to be able to cover both of those angles. And we can. It's just a matter of how are you going to do that? And that, again, that's something we could talk about down the stand. And we're doing a further compliance session today as well, where we'll definitely be drilling into those compliances.
All right, big thanks. And thank you everybody for listening in. So I think one thing which is the topic of the whole session, friend, foe, or both. I think we've proven here that it is both. So it can be a friend, it can be a foe, depending where you look. But the main point is that everybody has to do their own assessment of the situation, because there's no companies that are completely alike. So I recommend highly to look into your situation, go through the policies, what has been trained to your employees, and then make sure that you have a solid foundation where to start building your capabilities. With these words, big thanks everybody. Thank you for listening, and thank you for our excellent team of experts.